So when you take something like your career
Mhm.
and you want to play around with it, people are like, why you have a really good job, Jeff? Why are you, well, because this really good job isn't really good for me anymore. And I need to do something different. And I think I can do this. So you have this belief and you get into it. Excuse me. And then
Mhm.
sometimes that belief gets the best of you. And sometimes that belief makes you get a little too big for your britches. Sometimes that belief makes you forget some of the things that you need to do in order to run a business. Now, starting a consulting business or doing freelance consulting work, like there's a business to be run there, and you have to work on the business, you have to work in the business, you have to be thinking of the business, you have all these things. And what I've learned in the 7.5 years that I've been in business is that I am not a great marketer, as good of a sales guy as
Mm.
I am, and I don't think there are very many better than me. We can define what better is at another time, but there are some marketing aspects that I don't do well. And a lot of those
Mm.
marketing things you really have to have. So you get blinded with, but I'm really good at this. People listen to me. They want to know more. They ask me for more. But if you can't check the boxes in the marketing realm of, who's your ideal client? Who do you want to work with? Who are you most effective working with? And the most important one is, what exactly do you do? And that is, oh, well, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a trainer, I'm a whatever. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
And well, Derek, it means whatever you want. What do you need? I'm a sharp guy. I've got a
That's
lot
where
of
I was gonna go with
experience. I
that. It's
know
just,
things. So
what do you need
what
it
do
to
you
be?
want?
Yeah.
Well, when everything you do is custom, that sounds really good. You feel like you're offering something. I'm not going to be boxed in. I'm not going to be painted into a corner. I'm going to give you what you need. You just got to trust me. Well, if you can't explain what you do, if you can't put yourself in a box, how easy do you think it is for a client, a customer, a prospect to put you in that box?
Mhm.
And that's what I realized. And so it's a long way to start to answer your question. But, you know, when I started, I got a client that basically took me out of my full-time gig. I had permission from my full-time job. It was the best job I'd ever had. It just wasn't going to be the job for me for much longer. And a small opportunity turned into a big opportunity. And I worked with that company for 5.5 years. And it was big enough for me to keep my bills paid. It was a pay cut, but it was a big enough job for me to get my bills paid and try to figure out how to run a business. And I learned a lot, but I was caught up in the enthusiasm of others. I was caught up in the quality of my content. Actually, it's not a meritocracy.
Mm.
I learned that way too late. And I got caught up in the really the concept of I'm doing the same things that my mentors are advising me to do. I'm doing the same things that other people around me were doing. And what I didn't learn until far too late was that I was probably a year and a half to 2 years too late to be successful doing it that way. I had just not, I don't surf, but I've tried. And if you don't catch that wave at the right point, if you're just a little behind it, you go nowhere. And that's kind of where I got stuck. And so it took me a long time to recognize this. And I had a bunch of pipeline that was like ready to go. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't ready to go. I'd never seen so much pipeline disappear for so many valid reasons at this. I mean, it was just like one of those things that happens twice in your career, maybe, and it happened at the wrong time. And all of a sudden, I'm like, man, I need to be able to just pick up the phone and call people. I know I can sell. But then it was the worst case of um, call reluctance I'd ever had. I
Wow.
know I can
Wow.
sell,
Mm.
but I didn't know what I was selling.
In terms of
And if
selling
I don't,
yourself or
yeah,
some,
and
mm.
if I don't know what I'm selling, how does anybody know what they're buying? So I had to
I think when
go,
you said when we spoke offline, you were talking about
yeah,
how the complacency set in, like the transition that you had, which we'll get into a little bit more.
mhm,
The the fact that you had a paying gig that was relatively stable, set up, this new client that you could segue to, right? Maybe that's
mhm,
not how everyone gets in, but you had that, and it was enough. And I think you had mentioned about the complacency where you didn't really need to do much outreach. You didn't need there's a lot of stuff you didn't need to do because you were comfortable relatively with the client in the project that you had.
And I was comfortable enough and
Mhm.
led enough to believe that it wasn't really ever going away. And so it was like, okay, you got the golden goose, don't kill the golden goose.
Right.
Whatever you do, don't screw that up. So it wasn't so much that it was complacency as much as, although there was a little bit of that, I'll own up to that. But the idea that I don't want to push my boundaries to the point where, yeah, I have young kids. It's really important to me that they have respect for their dad and their dad's around, and I'm not just on a plane
All the
flying all over the
time.
place all the
Mm,
time. You know, it was really important to me that my marriage, continued to thrive. And, there's all these things that, the world will find, the universe will find a way to conspire against you
mm.
whenever you're trying to level up. And
This is true.
it'll go far out of its way to convince you that you're doing just fine and that you should be grateful for that. And you shouldn't, fly too close to the sun and all those things. And so it was complacency and fear and a perfect storm of those emotions and also the Jeff, just keep doing what you're doing. It's going to pop, man. I'm getting invited to speak at conferences that mentors of mine are putting on. I'm being, fed um, referrals and things. Hey, Jeff, I look. My practice is so busy. I have more referrals and more prospects that I know what to do with. I don't do this. I don't trust very many people to do this, but I'm going to pass this lead along to you because I know that you will treat my best-selling author reputation very well, right? Like my uh, I had earned the trust of my peers, but I had not earned really the recognition of my prospects. And I did not understand how the words, the messaging, the concepts, I didn't understand how to interpret what I was doing and articulate what I was doing in any meaningful way directly to the people I needed to reach. And that's where I really got stuck. And so then I have to go back and realize that it's not a selling issue, Jeff. You have a selling issue because you have a marketing issue. Your call
Clarity.
reluctance comes from the fact that you aren't prepared to go to market. And that's when I had to search and that's when I had to really go deep and do that hard work that I had put off for 7 years because, well, one, I didn't really want to do it. I thought I was getting away with something.
Mhm.
And two, um, I had enough momentum and enough people convincing me that I didn't really need to do it that way. And when it finally came to a head, there were some dark times at the end of the summer and into the fall in 2022. But what
Mhm.
was really interesting, Derek, was that every step I took, and I'd have high days followed by low days, followed by what am I doing? Am I irresponsible? Should I just go get a job? Like, I know I can go sell things. I know I can lead people.